Hey, Katie, it's that time of year again. If you're a stylist, a salon owner, or someone who just loves this industry, I want to invite you to the room that feels like home. Presley Poe and Friends is happening April 25th and 26th in Frederick, Maryland. It isn't about the hype. It's about you belonging.
This weekend's about community, real connection, real conversation. Presley Poe themselves is the heartbeat of this event, and they're bringing people they genuinely believe in. Ruth Roche, Jackie Davis, Krista Bartik, Cynthia Lumsey, these are artists that care about the room, not just the stage.
You will learn, you'll be inspired, but more than anything, you'll be seen. Whether you're early in your career or decades in, this is the space where you can exhale and remember why you chose this industry in the first place.
Now, seats are limited, and this room fills fast. If this feels like something you need right now, don't wait. Grab your ticket at PresleyPoeandFriends.com, and we can't wait to welcome you.
Hey, welcome to your day off. My name is Corey, and I'm the host of this here podcast. And today I am with my friend Katie May. Katie, what's up, buddy?
Chilling. Back again.
Back again. Guess who's back? Katie's back. I'm pretty excited about the conversation today.
You're always excited about the conversation.
Well, I mean, I guess that's why I do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah.
We're excited.
You and I have talked, and certainly for the last couple of years, I'm really interested in bringing people from outside the industry into the conversation. And we get that opportunity to do that today. On the podcast today, we have a Buddhist monk. So we did a post about it. So if you had any questions, you missed it.
And it's like outside the industry, but I think that lots of the conversation will be pretty relevant, and people.
Well, I think that's the point, right? Like we can bring people from outside the industry into the industry, and make it relevant, or not make it relevant, but because it's relevant, I think is the best way to say it. Listen, at least personally, very much on my mind has been the Walk for Peace, which was 20 monks or 19 monks. I think 19 minus 1 plus 1 back to anyways, that's a whole nother story. But it was the Buddhist monks that walked from Fort Worth, Texas to our town of Washington, D.C. I was honored enough to greet them when they made it to DC, and so it's been in my awareness a lot. I hope other people followed along.
It was so nice to have that break up in my feed, like just the smiles and the people greeting them through the whole walk. Yeah, it was really cool, very inspiring.
It was really inspiring to me. I mean, it's really nice that there was nothing political about it. There was nothing religious about it. There was nothing. The only message that I took from it was that, not world peace. Actually, when I first started following them, it felt like world peace, like the 1960s, like we need world peace. But then the longer I followed along, I realized that the ask was internal peace. And, if we all have more internal peace within ourselves, then world peace is going to happen by itself, but I really liked it because it was more of personal accountability as opposed to some grandiose idea, so I really like that. So here's the story. Is our guest today, oh my gosh, I'm going to mess it up now. Ajahn Tri Dao. So I've been following him for about 6 months. Many people know that I was in Cambodia in July. I fell in love with the culture there. I fell in love with the people there. I had so many ahas and eye-opening moments about Buddhism. I just started. Anyways, I started following him back when I first got back from Cambodia. And then I actually recorded this video when I was at the walk. G was in the walk with it, but I watched the video like 100 times, and then I go, whoa, I know that dude. And then so I reach out to him on TikTok, and I go, hey man, just so you know, I have a video of you walking in DC. And then the next morning he reached out to me and go, at 4 a.m. by the way, which is very monk-like. At 4 a.m. he reached out to me and he goes, he sent me his telephone number and asked me if I could send him the video. So I did send him the video. That screenshot of his face like on my camera is now his contact picture in my phone. But anyways, should we bring him in?
That's epic. Yeah.
So Mr. Ajahn Tri Dao, man, welcome to your day off.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. That was pretty awesome how you got that video. I was looking for it diligently, and then it was like, one of those experimental scientific videos where it just passes by and it's like, do you see it or do you not see it?
Yeah. Is it a
Yeah.
blue dress or a gold dress?
Right.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. It was really cool. It was really cool how, and I don't know, maybe you can walk us through like what was the ask as far as you guys coming in? Like, did the Buddhist community get together? How does the Buddhist community communicate? And where did all those like tag alongers, not the original 20, but the 150 or so that showed up?
Yeah, so they actually put a post out on their Facebook and they invited venerable monks and nuns to join. And there was a registration process that goes along with that. And then that was a short amount of time. I think people only had like a day to register. And then after that, you can't register anymore. And so I saw that post and, we already knew that they were going to arrive there on or about that time frame. So I planned this out in my head where I was going to advocate, for the peace or different type of peace over in Minneapolis with the ICE situation. People who've been following me for a couple years know that I'm very socially active in that arena. And so I timed it just right where I could just go to Minneapolis, spend a couple days there for the ICE protest, and then shoot over to DC because it was already up in the northern area. So it was just perfect timing.
And so did the monks that well, actually, let's get into it. I'd love to get your perspective from it. Like, when did you start following the monks? And then is there like some underground, like, hey, we're going to do this walk? Is there some kind of communication there? Or did you find it like everyone else did?
Yeah, I found out just like everyone else did when they first began, when they were still in Texas. And then when they got to about Georgia, I was in Taiwan. And I actually made a video and I published it about talking about how the walk's going to be over. And then I actually want to continue the walk as a young monk, the younger generation of monks, to probably do the other side of the United States. Because, this stuff that's going on in the United States is going to last quite a while. But yeah, just like everybody else when they were still in Texas.
And then, so is it a practice to do the walks? Because I know that they did one in India a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, so wandering monks, the quote and the philosophy is, not all those who wander are lost. And so in the days of the Buddha told them to go different directions, try not to go together, to spread the teachings, to spread the Dhamma. But for safety reasons, that's why they go in the numbers that they do. But you do see single solo monks across Thailand, across India, in Vietnam. We have Venerable Minh Tuệ. So you see them variously. It was just unusual to see them in the United States. I mean, before this walk, there were a group of monks. I think they were from Fort Lauderdale or West Palm Beach, Florida. And there were about 4 or 5 of them that marched upwards. And I can't remember where they were, but they took a couple pictures with deputies, but they didn't get that social media hit like this walk for peace that happened the way that it did.
It was pretty cool though to kind of watch it and again, because they don't really have a PR group or anything, it was just.
I loved checking in with them to see like where they were and,
Completely.
You felt like you were with them on it. It was really cool.
I mean, for those last couple of weeks, my entire Facebook was them.
Yeah.
What was them in the walk and I mean, kind of what I love and hate about Facebook, right? Like, I'm very, very conscientious about what I click, as you know, what I click on. And I just started removing, not people necessarily, but conversations. Like I go, I'm not interested in this. I'm not interested in anything political, any side, any whatever. I'm very conscientious about what I consume. So it was really nice to see my entire feed filled with like saffron robes. I really appreciate that, because I know that the only thing that I was going to see and was the peace, which I think is certainly more aligns with me now. All right, a big question here, Jay. What is Buddhism a religion?
It's both. So it needs to be a religion so that it is protected under law, but in its practice, it's more of a philosophy, it's a way of life. In the most recent world religion textbooks, call it a religion of enlightenment.
Because I was reading some stuff and, some people were saying that it's not a religion, that it's more of a philosophy or it's more of a practice. Somebody actually compared it to yoga. It's closer to yoga than it is religion, because there are no deities and there are no there's no gods or anything that you actually pray to. So it's much more of a practice than that. So I found that interesting too. And again, I think it's just like a mindset to what it is.
Well, yeah, it's so when we think about the word religion, we think about worship. We think about the word God, worship, and repetitiveness with a goal of heaven or hell in mind. These are typical characteristics of the word religion when someone thinks about it. But, when we look at Buddhism, we have religious practices like chanting and meditation, our mind and body are religious practice. But sorry,
No
TikTok
worries.
911 monk, people calling in for counseling. So the Buddha never claimed to be a god, which is pretty awesome. And basically he said, don't even believe me. What I'm telling you, you are to test everything out that I'm telling you for yourself. So that's why it's a way of life and it's a practice, is that if he told us to focus on our breath, that we would in fact achieve peace. He told us that if we brought the mind under control, attend to it, and discipline your mind, that you would in fact yield great happiness. So it's my job as a monk to prove the Buddha wrong. So, behind me is the picture of the Buddha. Is monks' jobs, monks are like scientists in our arena of the religion side. And our job is to try to poke holes into the teachings, just kind of dig. We're like archaeologists of the text, to see how well this is going to work out for modern day. How well can the teaching withstand the modern day rigor of praise and blame, loss and gain, suffering and pleasure, etc. So that's wonderful. And of course, along the way in the years of yesterdays, a lot of people didn't ever get that clarification. So they think and they see the outer image of us chanting or prostrating to the Buddha. People think, oh no, this is definitely a religion. I can't join this because I belong with XYZ.
No, for sure. Again, that's kind of why the walk was so interesting to me, because again, it was just spreading peace. Just there was nothing else. I know there's also a video online of help me out with his name, the lead guy with all the badges.
Panya Kara.
Yeah, you got it. Just like that.
Kara.
But there's a video of him of a guy debating with him, like a Christian debating with him, and I thought that he handled it in a very like kind of monk way. It was like it was reserved but like firm. And it was really nice to see that there was no disrespect that he was throwing either. It was just like this is our way.
It was a calm conversation.
Yeah, it was definitely calm. I mean, he definitely at the end he created a boundary, like this is it, but thank you for listening and whatever. So it was really cool. Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool. It wasn't so much as the debate as it was a conversation in there. Gee, so walk me through the different branches of Buddhism. Like the guys that walked, they were Theravada, right?
Yeah, so we are the oldest, longest, still continuing school of Buddhism. So we're like the Yodas of all the Jedi, right? In accordance to the Pali Canon. Yeah. Which is pretty cool, but we're very strict, very conservative school of Buddhism. We have 227 rules, cannot get married, cannot have sex, must remain celibate, just a lot of rules we have to follow. Additionally, we have thousands of amendments, especially in Thailand, to the rules. So, there were disagreements about what they had heard the Buddha taught. So, they split. We went south, the Theravadans went south, commonly now found in Cambodia, Laos, Thailand. And then the Mahayanans, also known as the Greater Vehicle, went north, Japan, Vietnam, China. And then you have the Vajrayana, which is Tibetan, where the Dalai Lama comes from. But that sub-branch falls under Mahayana, but because they're so popular, they became their own school of Buddhism. So we have three primary branch of school of Buddhism. And of course, under each of those three branches, there are sub that's divided into, like for Theravadans, you have those who just who study, you have those who just practice and not study the suttas, and then you have those that do both. So there are a bunch of sub branches. You have Thai forest traditions, Thamayut, Dhammakayas, which is the monastery that can house 1 million people with 50,000 monks in there.
Wow. Where's that?
That's a Dhammakaya monastery. I believe they're near Bangkok. If I look it up, I can probably find it. But yeah, if you just put monastery with 50,000 monks, it would probably show up pretty fast.
Hey, with Cambodia?
Their robes are very different type of yellow too. And it was founded by Thamma Chayo, Venerable Thamma Chayo. Pretty awesome. That's like the closest Vatican we have to Theravada Buddhism. It's the Tamakaya, which I got to visit there in 2024.
That's very, very cool. What so were you
In Vietnam, in Nha Trang City in 1988. Yes.
and then so you how long have you been in the US?
30 years, and I immigrated in 95 under the Reagan bill. My father was a military lieutenant, South Army, Vietnam.
And so did you were you raised a Buddhist?
I was born and raised as a Catholic and and started veering towards Buddhism around 14 years old.
What was your pull? What was your pull? What attracted you to Buddhism at 14?
So I had to do community service based upon a traffic ticket at 14 years old here in Pinellas County. And when I walked into the monastery and I said, hey, I got to do like 50 hours, I started observing the monks. I started observing how they chanted from 7 to 7:30 and meditation from 7:30 to 8. And I just got hooked. I made this comparison in my head and I was like, I go to church and it just feels cold. You know, Jesus is on the cross far away. It doesn't feel that closeness with Christ. But when I walk into a monastery, you see, for example, fruits, offerings on the table that felt very warm and welcoming. It just felt a different type of energy. And so I tried it out, and not a lot of people look at you, but they're kind of at the Buddha. So I learned how to chant also, and I just got hooked based upon the feeling that I got.
That makes sense. Hey, is it and I don't know if this is your practice, but with the guys that walked, with the monks that walked, they can't buy food?
According to a few monks in there, according to the way that they kept their robes and wore their robes, suggests that they are like forest Thai monks, or they practice the forest ascetic ways. And the forest ascetic ways, like there was a monk in there, his robes was like 13 years old. And I seen it in person. And I was like, oh my God, that man has been in his robes for 13 years. 3 pair of robes, very strict. So technically, no. So it's in accordance to each individual monk's practice and mindset that they have for themselves. I mean, you have me, right? And I'll admit to this, like, there's times where I have to stop by McDonald's and get something to eat because I am the junior urban monk in St. Pete, Florida, So we monks in the city, we have a different color. Usually, you always see me wear orange, bright orange. And I don't have 3 pair of robes. I have like 6 or 7 when I'm traveling because there's no washer and dryer. So, but people made offerings to food along the way that you guys seen. People have made a lot of offerings, and all monks actually try our best to keep exactly and replicate how the Buddha practiced. And the Buddha traveled by foot, hundreds and thousands of miles. When people made offering, he took that offering, he sat alone, ate in his bowl, no chopsticks, no forks, no spoon, with your hands, okay, ate it out of the alms bowl. And then when you're done, you wash the alms bowl and off you go again. It is only when extreme necessity that there is no available food in the region or area that they have to resort to going out, to get food. But I have never observed, no one's ever observed them having to do that.
Yeah, I was, again, when it comes down to the discipline of it, that's pretty impressive to me, Well, my only thought is like, well, if nobody offers them food, do they not eat? Like, what happens? And then they're going to walk for 25 miles in that day or whatever. Like, and then if it's 2 days in a row, then what?
Mind over matter.
Yeah, I guess that's
And most of them have been trained their whole life for these types of walk. You get me walking 4 blocks, I'm out of breath. The car was a terrible invention. So actually my first 2 years as a monk, I actually walked here in St. Pete with all the availability of vehicles and everything like that. And you guys, whoever followed me back in 2018 saw that I got this really badass monk umbrella and just hit the streets, in every corner of St. Petersburg, preaching peace, standing up for LGBTQIA+. I mean, I was all over St. Pete with this one umbrella on foot, and I loved it. And you get to really stop and smell the flowers and observe your surroundings. And, that lasted for just about short of 2 years shy before I had to resort back to vehicle transportation. But it's really cool walking. People really replicate. Try to do it barefoot, just a couple blocks down the road. Try to ground with the earth. It gives you a different type of energy. That's why you guys see these guys are so energetic. because they're grounding with the earth. They have a direct relationship. They're kissing the earth with their feet. So there are, I think, what is it, negative ions or positive ions, that charges the human body. I've replicated this out on the beach when I'm doing lying down beach meditation. Take a nap out on the beach, wake up, and I'm a different new human out on the beach. It seems like it just sucks away all of your worries and troubles, psychological and cellular level effects that you've done to your body.
What?
I love that.
I know it's good, right?
Yeah.
Katie and I were talking before you jumped on, and just about like mindset and through meditation and what peace looks like. And it seems like almost every practice that we have today kind of like tracks back to like some kind of like Buddhist teaching as far as meditation and mindset and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Like Eckhart Tolle, to name a few. Any books on meditation, any books with the word enlightenment, or if you just pay close attention. Number one, if you want to do the comparison, study the Pali Canon. Okay, then that's your baseline. Then you go out and you see all these, romanticism of mindfulness, romanticism of, enlightenment, transcendence. And then you're like, wait a minute, they got this from the Buddha without crediting the Buddha. Okay, but we're predominantly Christian nation, so of course they got their own way of marketing themselves. But hey, I've sat there, for example, Eckhart Tolle has such a wonderful way of writing that it directly connects with people, where people are now aware of the word enlightenment and know what it's like to be at peace. So what I would take it, I have no objection to people borrowing our teachings to spread it, because it brings people closer together in knowing themselves. And the word spirituality just means that knowing thyself.
Really? Is that true? That's what that word means?
Yeah, well, people are like, I'm spiritual. Well, what does that mean? And the most accurate clinical meaning one should adopt, or one should, perhaps use, is knowing yourself. Look at every philosopher. When people get into spirituality, one avenue is to study philosophy. The Buddha was a philosopher. Christ was a philosopher. And then you got the more contemplative later on, Aristotle, Plato, Confucianism, the Tao Te Ching. Those are all philosophies. But then when we read philosophy, it's like, well, how do I use this in my life? And all of the philosophy points to knowing who you are, knowing your strength, your weaknesses, fallacies, your desires, your pleasures, what causes you pain. And then you realize, well, there's the clinical benefits of these philosophies for me.
I love that. Can we get into meditation? Because, it's impossible to talk to anyone about meditation where the very, very first wall or palm of the hand that you get is that I can't quiet the brain. And I try to tell people that is meditation. It's not about having thoughts or the thoughts being wild, but it's about meditation. To me is when you have those thoughts, is to be able to bring it back to a central location. And that's kind of the way that I think about it. But is that how the Theravadas are teaching it?
Yes. Before we go into meditation, I wanted to make one last comment on the Walk for Peace.
Yeah, please.
Was that I was there for the 3 days in DC that they were there. I was a day before them, and I also stayed a day after them. And it's fun being this one of 4 junior monks, watching Venerable Panyakara and the other monks. They're like supermen, literally supermen. And you also feel this energy with them. But when it's over, when the walk is over and all of us have to go back to our hotels or monasteries, some went to the monasteries, some chosen hotels for travels, we felt like the exhaustion. And Venerable Panyakara showed no signs of exhaustion in the midst of, after, you figure after their walk in Texas that they'd be exhausted in D.C. And then they walked in D.C., all the monuments, the Lincoln Memorial, and then to the Washington University. And then he's giving talks. He's also giving, peer-to-peer for us, monastics only. This man was just luminous. His mind was luminous. And physically, it seems like he got more energy from yesterday. So that was something that was just amazing. And then they had back-to-back events. After DC going back to their Hung Dao Vipassana meditation center, they had a homecoming. And again, he stepped into the rain talking to the masses of the crowd. But that was just amazing to see nonstop momentum. And I hope this year is the lunar year of the horse. And so I hope that people get the energy from the meaning behind the fire horse, to have that momentum to do things differently and to finish what you started. That's one of the most important sentences in this podcast, is to finish what you started, something that we procrastinate in America, from students to people who work, to starting projects or opening a business, what, you know what I mean? Just look at these monks and like, if they can do it, you can do it. Okay. Now we can.
I found it very emotional that once he got home, that the first thing he did was drop to his knees and pay honor to his teacher there. Like, I got choked up and emotional about that, because you would think like you just did this great thing and like your ego would be up, or you would feel like you deserve the flowers, but it seemed like he gave the flowers, to his teacher. Did you see that video? It's pretty emotional. As soon as he got back to like his home, like his teacher was there and he dropped to his knees and was like crying on his feet. It was like, whoa, yeah, exactly.
So his teacher, what we call Venerable Father, and after 5 years of apprenticeship, a monk can go off on his own. And he really doesn't need to linger around his teacher anymore. Once the teacher says, you are now good on your own. Now go spread the teachings. But clearly it was also emotional for me. I'm not sure if you were aware, but after their talk at the Lincoln Memorial, I was swarmed by a couple of reporters. One of them was like, I think their national TV, the DC something, interviewed me, and I also shed tears talking about the word suffering with them briefly. But I also got emotional when I saw that, just how he bowed to his teacher, the amount of time he spent on the floor. Then he wrapped both of his hands at the teacher's knees. And his teacher, Gunaratana, said at the Lincoln Memorial how he said, quote, I vowed to stand behind him and his endeavors, end of quote. And I was like, whoa. So his teacher was the driving behind force. This man he didn't walk alone. He walked knowing that his teacher was right behind him in case anything happened. And his teacher also walked with us towards the Lincoln Memorial, but he had to take a break because of his age. So that right there was a sense of indebtedness, from what I can interpret, being a Theravada myself. And I still have my supervising teacher. So Banyakara and myself, we both are Vietnamese. We both have teachers trained in the Burmese tradition. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, he still remained close by his teacher. And they obviously have future endeavors that they were going to do things together. But the fact that he obtained permission under close observance, that was very beautiful. And also to see teachers, kind of still, observe and to watch and to stand behind their students after 17 years of ordination. That was also impressive. It just made a very bold statements across the Theravadan waves across the world.
It's really cool. I also saw the Dalai Lama wrote a letter too, right? Like congratulating them, or I don't know if congratulation is the right word, but respecting
yes. Yes. So the Dalai Lama issued a letter, and that letter was read by his niece. His niece flew down to stand with them at the Lincoln Memorial.
Whose niece? The Dalai Lama's niece?
Yes.
Does she lives here in the U.S.?
I don't know. I don't know, but she read the letter and she says on behalf.
And so although there's all these different practices, is there respect for the Dalai? I don't know. Respect isn't the right word necessarily, but does everyone respect the Dalai Lama?
Yes. He's been a subject of praise and blame a lot lately, and no different than the Buddha. I mean, if they tried Christ and if they've tried the Buddha, they're obviously going to try the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is considered a living Buddha in his tradition, the Vajrayana order. Obviously, the Dalai Lama is very well known. You go to Barnes & Noble in the religious section, and you're going to see majority is his books. And he's kept it very neutral stance. He's not there to promote Vajrayana. He's not there to promote anything but peace and the path to peace. And the language has been very neutral. So I find that very commendable. I find that very, he's very chill. He's a very chill, supreme spiritual leader in the Buddhist tradition. And, I stand with him through the thick and thin of praise and blame. I mean, I also don't exempt praise and blame as a social media monk of 1 million followers. I mean, I don't care. I mean, you're going to get it, You get it if you talk too little. You get it if you talk too much. People are always going to find something they don't like. I mean, they're struggling to even like themselves, nonetheless anybody else. That's why Buddhism is amazing and awesome, is because, it's about knowing you and finding that true happiness. And once you have that compassion inside and operate on that software, you're no longer judgmental and you're no longer pointing fingers or finding something unhappy to complain about. I mean, we need less complaints in the world. We need less hatred in the world. The world is at war right now with so many countries is because of that self-hatred.
What is you jumping in?
I'm just enjoying the conversation.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine.
If I have something to add, I will.
I want you to. What is suffering?
Suffering is that uneasiness. Suffering is that I don't want blank. I don't want her to leave me. I don't understand why he left. I don't understand why I have bills to pay. Suffering is the opposite of acceptance. Suffering is that wrench in your heart when people, places, or things are no longer there, when things are no longer permanent, when things change, and when things are not under your control, and you're just pissed. You're just pissed. And the word pissed can mean you're going to be mad as hell for a long time, and then you and then you run away from the pain because you can't bear it anymore. And so you resort to alcohol, drugs, LSD, shrooms, ecstasy, prostitution, whatever you got to do to cope, because you just can't accept the fact that she left you or you left her for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
So that word, that's actually the hardest word to define in Buddhism is dukkha. People think like long words, like super amaraya machapamadhatana. No, that's a really long word. Hardest word to define and to explain is dukkha, which is suffering. And I hope that kind of explains it.
I mean, sort of, but like you said, it's kind of hard to. It's easy to explain, but it's just kind of hard to hold on to or to understand what exactly that is. I mean, it seems.
Well, because for every person, it's different.
Well, it's every reason is different, but I would argue that every suffering is the same. It is an attachment to something that you don't have control over. When again, I'm going to kill this once again, but when I was in Cambodia, what was really nice about it is that American arrogance was shined on. You know what I mean? Within myself, let me be clear, within myself, like, here's my expectation, but this isn't happening. So I had to kind of release all that, right? Like, checking into a hotel is very easy in the US. There, it's a little different, or maybe you have power outages, where in the US, it's just never happened. So when you have it, how do you respond to it? And it doesn't make them any more, any less, anything more or less than in a society. It just is what it is. And again, it kind of put a light on me, like, how are we going to handle this? Like, for instance, and I've told this story before, but my flight was canceled a couple hours before I was to take off, and like normally under normal circumstances, that would be annoying to me, but whatever it was about Cambodia and where I was when I was there, I was just like, perfect. I'll hire a car. I'll get to see the countryside. Like I leaned into, like, I get to see the countryside as opposed to flying above them, which there was zero stress about that at all, but then I could have created that suffering by being like, well, why me? Why my flight? It's being the attachment of what should be. At least that's the way that I understood it when I was there. Sorry, Mr. Monk.
Okay. Yeah. So nowadays I do one-on-one spiritual counseling, and people's stories sound something like this. Yeah, after I broke up with him, I got a DUI, and it kind of stops there. And it's my part is to jump in there and ask him, all right, let's slow down a little bit. How long did you date him again? Yeah. What made you date him? And how long did it last? What was the cause of the breakup? During the breakup, how did you feel? And what led you to get in that car? And after drinks, how many drinks did you have again? And then you got in that car, and as you were in that car, what were you thinking? What were you thinking at the time of you before getting in the car, during the driving, after you got pulled over, after you DUI? Where are we at now? So that's the dissection, the clinical dissection, the psychological clinical dissection of suffering, because I need to understand the intensity and depth of it. People, especially men, have a hard time labeling their feelings, have a hard time describing what happened. We just do things really fast, and then it happens, and then we cope, and then we get in trouble, and then we're in jail or the ER.
And that escalated quick.
And there's no dialogue in between, and even some therapists wouldn't even go back like that. Therapists are nowadays trained to like meet them in the present moment without digging too much in between or in the past. That's psychoanalysis, psychoanalytic. That's Freud stuff. In Buddhism, we call that the links of influence, which is dependent origination. So I take 4 years of what I learned at Ecker College and then 24 years of Buddhism, and I put them together so I can dissect a person's psychological life, because that's where hell and heaven is created, is in the mind, to figure out, what does suffering mean to you? If a person can in fact see suffering clearly, with great clarity, they would stop. They would have a firm determination that, all right, enough is enough. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm tired of going to the casino. I've wasted 200,000 in the casino. I've gone through like 20 prostitutes. I ain't doing this no more. They would come to a stop, and they would have this firm determination to bring their suffering to the complete ending by and through perhaps the methods that the Buddha gave us. That's what I did. I had to go through this. There's not a thing that humans have not done that I have not done. I've gotten a lot in trouble, did it all, alcohol, prostitution, I've done it all, in my younger days. The coping mechanisms that I have adopted, I was fed up at 20. The determination started at 23, and I ordained at 28 years old was when I ordained. I mean, because that was a good 5 years of nice conversation with oneself and start prepping yourself for the ordination and going forth. But, I just want everyone to really think about that. What does suffering mean to you? And are you sick and tired of being sick and tired?
What's the quote unquote cure to it? I said, and then is that where meditation comes in?
Life is going to be stressful. Life is the way that it is. We move 100 miles an hour in America. That's why there's McDonald's, so that we can eat and then continue. We don't take naps. That's why there's heart issues, cardiovascular disease. We die quite fairly fast and often because of stress. Marriages, divorces is so high because we have no time with our wives. We have no time with our loved ones. We have no time with them, quality time with them. No time to even make love, like no time to even kiss. That's the speed of America. That's capitalism. That's individualism. And so what you do is you adopt the principles of Buddhist way in order to come to the middle, trying to make adjustments as much as possible. We won't get it perfectly, but at least you are aware of time management. You are aware of emotional management, in managing your emotion. At least you are aware of the word peace, and you are aware of the word suffering and how to come in between that and then start the conversation with your loved ones. I mean, for example, people divorce because people also don't see suffering in themselves and their partner. Had they see suffering in themselves and their partner, they would have never chosen to fight. Willfully, knowingly, and intentionally direct harm. They would, for example, right speech in the Noble Eightfold Path. You would be so mindful of the impact of your words to your loved one. And you would endure and absorb more than to offend. You would just let her have at it with you because you are the bigger man, and to just let the bows and arrows fly this way and just take it and then admit to it. And in the practice of the non-self is the ego, which is take it. You did it. You are at fault. Admit that you are at fault. You contribute to the downfall of this relationship. It is not all her fault. It is not all his fault. His or her interchangeable. And that's where we make progress. And then we cry together, and then we repair, and then we become a more intelligent, emotionally intelligent couple proceeding forward. So that's just one aspect of life. You have money management, you have time management, you got the kids. Okay. So you have to dissect your life. That's why you need a good qualifying, authentic and experienced teacher to understand the dissection of the pie in life. And then he just helps you with each area of it until you come to the middle way. And that could take years, and that's okay. And that's okay too. I mean, investing in yourself, your family, your life is one of the best investment ever. I went and did that. I mean, again, 30 years in America. I've done everything that everybody's done. I've had multiple jobs. I was a salesman. I did security for a while. I was selling hot dogs out in the wagon wheel flea market. I was a CEO of my own retail company. And somewhere down the line, I was like, I need to really just focus on, just to take a break and focus on me and moving forward. So I hope people just take that into consideration.
Yeah, for sure.
That's so beautiful and profound. Listening to you explain that and talk about it, it's it seems simple enough, and it's so true that if you knew you were hurting someone, or like they're just your actions would be so different. But just that awareness, like there's so much lack of that, so much lack.
Right. But even when you say that, like it's to me, my eyes turn inward, right? Like where am I lacking awareness, or where am I like how do I show up better, and how am I more accountable for, the way that I operate? At least that's the way that I kind of see it. Maybe that's, whatever. I just it's almost a pet peeve of mine when, it's certainly online you watch people and like, oh, I was treated like this, I was like this, and I was like, well, what'd you bring to the conversation?
Yeah, it feels like you have to get to a level of experience or have like done
The
certain
work.
yeah, like you have to do the work, and that's a lot of people have struggle with that part. I think you have to start there, right?
Say again. Where?
With yourself, like you have to
Always.
start with the self work, and then, and I don't know. Yeah, it feels like that's the biggest struggle, I think,
It
right
definitely
now.
is, because at least for me and with my experience, it's like as long as the ego's connected, like it's impossible to see yourself. You almost have to like. Anyways, this is kind of to bring it full circle. This is kind of what meditation has taught me, right? Like that that there is the ego, and again, my trip to Cambodia, it was 18 days of like minimal ego, and it was purposeful. Okay, is this my ego talking? What's creating these thoughts in my head? And that gave me like an 18-day reprival from my own life to be able to kind of evaluate who I am and where I am and how do I bring that home. And what was amazing about the peace walk is that I was that way for months, and then I kind of lost it there over the fall and over the winter, and then to watch the walk for peace, like it kind of brought, okay, I need to be more active in my own practice and in my own self.
So what is one or like a couple things that people can do to start that process? Because it feels so overwhelming. Like, how can you start just slowing down and talking to yourself?
Journaling.
Hmm.
Ooh.
We so listen, this is the fun part. Again, Panyakara, myself, Vietnamese, trained by Burmese teachers. There are things that I've said that things that I've said a long time ago, 10 years ago. Nobody ever heeded my advice. I'm actually, the other day, I sat in a student's car and they were listening to my podcast on Apple Podcasts. And I apparently I forgot what I said to people, but writing was one of them. I told people to keep a journal, write down your thoughts and feelings. Then fast forward, Venerable Panyakara do this walk for peace. He telling people to write. Today's gonna be my peaceful day.
Today's going to be my peaceful day.
Chi Dao told you to write down things so that you can track your mind. I mean, Chi Dao was more clinical. Chi Dao is more deeper. He needed to give y'all a quick sentence so that you all reflect on it. But I'm more psychologically deep and blah blah blah. Okay, so by writing it down, we have to stop in our day and sit and look at your handwriting. And if it's sloppy because you're writing too fast, if you can't read your sentence, that means you're thinking too fast.
Mm.
This is the basics of humanity, the art of being human, because the Aryans and the Egyptians, the hieroglyphics, they wrote it down. They wrote it for a reason. We've lost that art. Now we got iPads with all these white iPad pens, and what? And then we got Siri writing for us, dictating for us. And that's not good, because then we're moving too fast. Admittedly, for all of my wonderful Americans, I share mutual understanding with all of you, how all of us are now forgetting together, myself, because everything's moving so fast that we're forgetting together. We're forgetting to like eat, take a nap, cook. That's why people go out. I mean, there's more. Look at how many fast food there are out there. So I would say sit, write, then stop. Stop and reflect and sit with the silence.
What? Can you
And
give
when
me
you
a go ahead, I'm sorry.
and when you sit with the silence, you're sitting with the discomfort. But you must sit with the discomfort. You must sit through the pain of the good, the bad, and the ugly in your life. The things that happen, is happening, and may happen in the future. Sit with it, because that's endurance. These monks have to sit with the pain. And the most present pain is the pain underneath their foot. You got joint pain, you got low back pain, you got all these types of pain that they endured so that they can override it psychologically. They're overriding physical pain with the psychological software that they have received in the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha. So therefore, that is going to be the most basic thing during this talk and after this talk that people can do.
What walk through with like when you're journaling, what does your journal look like? Like what are you literally writing down?
So
Like
I've
this
been
is
writing.
where I get lost. Like I sit down with the pen and I'm ready to go, but then I'm like, I don't even know what to write or who I'm writing to, or am I writing to myself? Am I writing it to be read? Like there's so much confusion in like what that looks like.
Overthinking.
Probably.
So
Glad I
nowadays,
have a monk here I can ask.
So nowadays, you go to Barnes and Noble, and they're very creative with writing. You got prompts. You got prompts already. You got, this is my life. This is my father's life. This is my mother's life. My grandmother, my grandfather. You got hourly, daily logs, and I would say start there with the hourly, daily logs, which is how much time did you sleep? We got a big problem with sleep in America. People only getting 4 or 5 hours sleep when you're supposed to be getting like 8. Okay, 6 to 8. So tracking how you sleep gives you insight as to how your mind is tripping. Your mind is tripping because there's lack of sleep. So then you write, Dear Journal, I slept at 1 in the morning after scrolling 2 hours on TikTok, and I woke up at 6 a.m. not eating breakfast, and I'm already agitated. I'm already arguing with Tom. Then I call Harry, and I chewed him out for things that he did yesterday. Now I got to go to work, and I really don't want to meet Karen right now. Okay?
Always
I
a
am
Karen.
livid right now, right? So when you write that like 4 times a day, you're going to be like, wow, I'm really negative. I'm really negative. I'm really emotionally charged. I'm like ready to like ripping someone's head off right about now. Okay? So at that point, it's probably good to reach out to a therapist, or me, whatever. I don't mind it. Okay? And tell them like, hey, you know what? This monk told me to write these things down, and I'm catching myself. I'm catching myself not sleeping well. I'm catching myself irritable, combative, bitter, resentful, angry. And the therapist or your family doctor is going to be like, okay, all right. Well, yeah, we definitely need to take a break. Or you need to take into consideration that you need a break from life. I think in Europe, doctors now write prescription for people to take vacations. And, you went to Cambodia for that is because we needed a good spiritual break to forget everything, to forget about Tom, to forget about Harry, and definitely stay away from Karen for a minute to recenter ourselves. Because Karen is always in your face when you're at work. Karen's always asking you for help, even though you gave her the help that she needed, and she just decided not to remember the help that she has received. So, you're just like, Karen, I just want to with you. Okay. I get it. I mean, I've worked in America for 30 years. So, actually 20 something years. All right. Lived, for 30. Okay. So, we just need to catch ourselves. Mindfulness is that. The word sati in Buddhism is sati in mindfulness. Mindfulness means to remember, to observe how your mind is jumping. But how do we do that? We write it down. And then slowly, you're going to see what you're writing down. I mean, how could you not see what you're writing down? Because you have to write it down. You have to read it. You have to think about it. There's that multi-tier process of filtering and, just going down the list and be like, yeah, this is, unless you're so, oblivious to yourself that you're writing all of these sentences down, you're not catching it and it's normal to you. But now we have a book of evidence. And if a therapist or myself or a qualifying psychologist out there, it's like, you have a journal, and somewhere down the line, the conversation is going to come up. You're going to be like, yeah, I kept this journal. And this is what I wrote. I want to share it with you. It's something that people typically ask from a therapist standpoint. It's like, do you mind sharing what you wrote? They'll catch it. We just need a system of catching it. That's where help can begin or start.
I guess we've normalized chaos so much in the world that like when you're being crappy to somebody else, it's almost celebrated, or you feel like you can be crappy to someone because it's vindictive in some sense. Like, to me, that's like, certainly we see it online a lot, like how we treat one another and how they deserve the worst of me, not the best of me. I don't know. It's scary in that sense, how we've normalized like this chaos, or we've normalized this grossness as far as I'm concerned.
You're absolutely right. Most recently, I went down south to like Port Charlotte area on a medical case. And this nurse, nurses are trained to be compassionate, understanding, soft. St. Pete nurses ain't like that down there. Okay. What had happened was I was functioning as a medical interpreter, the forms that I filled out for my patient didn't have pharmacy information. Oh my goodness. The way this one Karen asked about the pharmacy information, and I just looked at her like, am I in trouble or something? Because the way, it's not what you say, is how you say it. And the way she like stared down at me, oh, it was so judgmental. God, I felt the heat. I couldn't even breathe. And
My
I was like,
goodness.
yeah, I'm telling you, this is a trained monk, 24 years of meditation. And I'm like, oh, I just want to jump out the window. And I was like, so do you want me to stop everything and provide this information for you? And then she just snapped. She's like, so we're doing that today. And I'm like, what are we doing? It's like, your energy. And I was like, my energy?
Right?
My energy. Okay.
Yeah.
If I was bitter, I would always be bitter. And if I'm always bitter, these people would pick it up. They could pick it up through the tone, and they could pick it up through like, the video chat or whatever. They would never follow me online if I was bitter or have bad energy. You know what I mean? And I was like, me? All right, I'll take it, Karen. I'll take it. All right. All right. Then I go back and try to help her think, right? Because that's what monks do. They help people think. And I'm like, ma'am, I was just wondering, was there a question on the form that asked about pharmacy? No. And I was like, okay. So like she thinks, so like she would like put it together like, well, we would have avoided this had there been a question in there already. But yes, this is to give insight as to how it has become so automatic and judgmental people are, or just how snappy they've become that they don't even catch anything that they're doing. And it's totally normal. Likewise, for men, we're so angry that it becomes normal for us that when we snap listen, high blood pressure is not a good thing. A stroke is not a good thing. My mom died a year and like a week ago of a stroke. And she had like the quick, fast, easy one. Okay. The point of this is take care of your mind and body. As you take care of your mind, you take care of your body. The more stressed and angry you are, you get high blood pressure. You get high blood pressure, you're at risk of a stroke or heart disease. You get the stroke and then you're paralyzed. That's
Right.
what sucks. That's what suffering actually really means. You clock out, you do your 8 and hit the gate like my mom did, and it's like wonderful. You go to Nirvana or you hang out with the Buddha and have lunch. That's great. But it's when you don't clock out and you're stuck in a wheelchair like Steve Hawkins, wheeling around, and you can't speak. And how are you going to communicate? How are you going to meditate? You better know how to meditate at that point.
Your life is meditation.
Yeah, you're to yourself, you're by yourself, you're with yourself. So we want to prevent that. That's the purpose. That's one of the purpose of today's talk, is to prevent premature death, increase quality of life. It's a short trip, folks. It really is. It's a short trip. There's no point in getting angry. People are who they are, and Buddhism helps you kind of understand the true nature of reality of humans. The true nature of reality of Karens. And you have compassion when you find out that they are who they are, and they've been this way. It's like it's no point getting angry.
I love the idea of impermanence. I love that, if you're not here forever, then what are you going to do with the time that you are here? I kind of love that it sounds morose, but if you kind of flip it on its head, it's just like, making value of your present time and where you are. And Lord knows I'm trying to be better at that all the time. When it comes to meditation, people also get intimidated by you hear about like 10-day meditation retreats and stuff, but like on a daily practice, like what's a good place to start? Is it minutes? Is it whatever? Is it guided? Is it quiet? Like, let's walk through that a little bit.
I would start out with guided meditation with music to ease it in. This is a kind of like exposure therapy for people who are afraid or have doubts about it, because our practice is silence. Our practice is 2 types of meditation, 2 primary types. Number 1, tranquility meditation, focusing on the breath to bring the mind calm, under control. After the mind is calm, under control, we move to insight meditation, which is also known as the 4 foundations of mindfulness, vipassana, which is the 10-day thing that you just said. And that's when we're really doing judo in the mind. Okay, that is very intense. So you have to kind of prime yourself. No different than it's like, hey, come walk with me to DC from Florida. And people are like, no, that's a quick way to wind up in the ER and, at risk of imminent death. So how about we walk like a block, and then we increase to like 5 blocks, and then we get to a mile, and then, eventually we'll build the stamina and rigor for the longer trips. So in in meditation, you want to start off with some pleasant music, some guided meditation using the apps, perhaps reach out to a good experienced monk, follow the instructions of the monk. In Buddhism or in monasteries, Theravadans, in-breath but, out-breath to means Buddha. But to. You went to Cambodia. Cambodia sometimes adopt that too. In-breath but, out-breath to means Buddha. A Buddha that knows. What does he know? He knows when he's breathing in. He knows when he's breathing out. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. I teach 4 techniques. In-breath 1, out-breath 1. In-breath 2, out-breath 2. Do that all the way to 10 and then backwards. Okay. Analyze the temperature of the air that you're breathing through your nostrils. Is it 70 degrees, 68 degrees? Is it 80 degrees? Okay. Why do we do this? This is the only way we're going to bring the mind under control. The mind can only do one thing. This is exactly what Venerable Panyakara says. It can only do one stop multitasking, one thing at a time. The mind can only focus on the breath and what you're trying to do with the breath. If you're trying to count, it's going to focus on that. So essentially, we're trying to press the brakes, the train of the mind. The mind is 200 miles an hour. So essentially, we're slowing it down. But yeah, I mean, but initially, I don't expect people to go straight into samadhi like us monks. I want to know about how people are trying the apps, how well it's working out, and to document that in your journal.
Perfect.
That's awesome. What I have you? There's that kind of breath work, but there's also like the therapeutic breath work and stuff. Do any of the monks practice those? Like the
therapeutic meaning,
like it's like the hyperventilation type stuff that get you all buzzy and stuff.
So we enter the stages of jhana, Jhana. So when we get to that meditative absorption, we are blissed out. Like what happened to me in 2017 between the 11 p.m. to about 1 or 2 a.m., I blissed out. I tasted nirvana for the first time in my life. And it was the compelling reason why I am still a monk today. I went and I described and published this worldwide for all senior monks to hear, and and the entire world to put underneath the microscope when I kind of somewhat forced my breath. Something you're not supposed to do, but I was very frustrated, but very determined. How Panyakara was determined to reach DC was how determined I was to bring this darn mind once and for all under control. And on the winter days of 2017, I was actually indoor, not outdoor. I was not underneath a tree. I was in, cement. I was surrounded by walls. And I was like, that's it. And I forced my breath, kind of like, what is that? It was a Hindu term for it, okay? But it is not typical Buddhist practice that we force the breath in such a way. But anyways, I was very deep breath in, very deep breath out, and forcing it because I was just so frustrated buying through this little tiny frustration of anger. And then all of a sudden, I like blissed out on all black, kind of like going into space. The Simpsons, the little white dots out in space?
Yeah.
I was there for like 20 minutes. It was like an out-of-body experience, but I knew that I was there. It wasn't a dream. I know that I'm there. And that's what made it awesome, was that I know what it's like. I kind of know what it's like if I was to die. If I was to die, I may just go back there. How long am I to hang out there? I don't know. Whether I ascend or descend, I don't know yet, according to my karma. But that was cool because I couldn't feel my body. So there was no more physical pain. I can't feel anything. I'm out. I'm out of my body into this nibbanic experience, what I call it. Okay. So that was cool. When I returned back to the body and opened my eyes, whoa, I was out for 3 hours,
Whoa.
But it was 20 heavenly minutes. Now, in the scriptures, when you read about heavenly time, I mean, you can spend like 10 minutes in heaven and it's like 100 years on earth in the scriptures. But this was 20 minutes in whatever space I went. And then I came back 3 hours like, oh my God, I did it. I went there, right? And so I never achieved that again. However, when I meditate nowadays, there is no more production of thoughts. I'm able to just enjoy the sound of the birds or the wind, and there are no productions of thoughts. And that's what I kind of want to get everybody excited about trying meditation, is you want to get to that point, because that's peace. Peace is free from disturbing emotions. Peace is also freeing yourself from the typical 70,000 separate each thoughts that you experience a day. That's tormenting. And the fact that I tested the methods of the Buddha, the fact that I, in fact, achieved this peace that he was talking about, a glimpse of it, piece of the chocolate. Wow. I was like, okay, well, it worked. Because had it not worked, I would have been back dating. I've been in love 7 times. No, I'm working towards a master's degree. It's like, I was a CEO, like I've had 2 Rolexes in my life. It's like, what's the point of being in orange, giving it all up? I mean, who's seen me walking in public with a Rolex while wearing orange robes, right?
Well, so when I was in Cambodia, I saw an orange robe and it had like an $8,000 like camera lens on him. I took a picture of him. Yeah, he had like this giant like camera lens at Angkor Wat, and I
Probably doing stuff for the monastery. He's probably like a cameraman for the monastery or something.
Yeah, whatever it was. It was just an odd look. You're like, well, we know how much. Yeah, that was a $10,000 rig, and with the.
So my point is that it worked. Meditation does in fact work. Because had it not worked, out of all school of Buddhism in Japan, a monk can get married and have kids. Why didn't I go there and get married and have kids and drive a Ferrari? Nobody looks at that. Why did I continue to stay as a Theravadan Buddhist
Because
monk?
wives and kids is dukkha.
I mean, but some people don't see it. You get what I mean? But the fact that it worked, so continuing to be a Theravadan monk reminds me that, hey, even though life is stressful, and it is sometimes for me too, I will continue to practice the middle way because I think the reward towards the end is going to be awesome and blissful.
What does the middle way mean? You've mentioned it twice.
Not too much of something and not too lazy of something. So don't work yourself too hard where you're going to have a, heart attack. And don't be too lazy sitting on the couch playing video games for all my Gen Zs out there. That's not the middle way. The middle way is a good balance of eating right, sleeping right, loving one another, forgiving one another, the joys of life, but also enduring the sorrow, the suffering, the misery of life. The human realm has both mixtures of pleasure and pain. Endure it with victory. Don't complain too much about it. Pick yourself back up. Remain resilient. Charge forward. Exactly like these monks did. That's my definition of the middle way.
That's really good. When I was in Cambodia, I learned, maybe I didn't learn, I heard that the monks, depending on, like you wear a pretty bright orange, which means that you're early in your practice. And then as you move through the practice or further along in the journey, do the robes get darker?
No, I cycled through all 8 colors as form of public education, but the dark brown is the most revered one because it typically denotes that they are forest monks. They practice the austere practices, not austere, but ascetics way. I mean, quite very serious. And orange is more like urban setting. Orange, it varies on location. Dark red is Burmese. That's also a very revered color because the Vipassana meditation movement started in Burma under Ledi, Ledi, Sayadaw, and the lineage went down from there. So those are the 2 most revered color, and that's why you see experienced teachers wear dark red or dark brown. But yeah, and then novices usually orange. Urban stuff orange, gold.
How do you know that you're moving on in the practice? Like, how do you know you're becoming a better monk?
It's the way how you respond to life. Is when someone pokes a stick at you and another Karen becomes another Karen, but a more intense Karen than the previous Karen. And you're just like, I'm chill, dude. I'm just zenning out. Like, I don't understand why you're angry because I would never get angry at you. See how chill that sound? Right.
Yeah.
That's when they're like, they have no idea what planet. They think you're on drugs, but you're Buddha-ing them. That's what I call it. Buddha them. You've been Buddha'd, okay?
With that debate that's online between like the gosh, I'm never going to get his name. I apologize, but the guy, the lead guy from the
Panyakara.
Yeah, him. Like when when he was like having the conversation with that Christian guy, it was very much that. It was very much with kind mind and kind heart. Even though I felt like, I don't know if the other guy was pretty respectful too when they actually sat down together. But it's also the same guy that was behind us screaming on a megaphone in DC.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good encounter. I mean, so I'm also a reverend, a pastor in the Christianity world. I had to get both ordinations for the sake of the legality aspect of spiritual counseling, or born and raised Catholic. I like see through all this through my eyes as a pastor, and I'm like, some of us would just never go out there and just hold some of these signs the way that they do. Some of us would never push to the envelope of hell, and you got to do this, you got to do that, and it's like people also forgot that man wrote the Bible. Man wrote our Buddhist Bible. So don't take it too seriously. That's not the middle way. Like, chill, And I just hope to be that millennial monk, the millennial generation of defining what is the middle way. That yes, you can have alcohol. You want to drink alcohol? Go ahead. Because the more I tell you not to drink alcohol, you're going to do it any darn ways, Tom. All right? But don't drink to the point where you have no idea what planet you're on. You have no idea what planet you're on.
Yeah, Katie doesn't remember her 20s at all.
I heard they were fun.
Some would say. That's awesome. All right. G, what are the takeaways? What can we focus on? What can we look to?
Reel it back in. Right now, at the time of this talk, we got war in Iran. We got war in Cambodia. We got war everywhere. We got war within ourselves. We're easily moved what is good and bad. We get online, we read a bunch of nonsense. We're seeing a bunch of people doing a bunch of nonsense. It does not bring us peace. It is wasting our precious time. Time is measured by heartbeats, not actual your clock. Okay? You got millions and millions of heartbeats remaining left to live. Achieve peace and know what peace is like before you die. A good life equals a good death. Okay? Learn to let go. There's no point in hanging on to anything. You came with nothing, you will leave with nothing. Okay? You don't want to bring anger with you in your casket. That is bad rebirth. Okay? Just a lot of things. A lot of people look very angry in their casket. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of deaths in coffins. I'm telling you, you don't want to look like that. Okay? Be like my mother, who died of a sudden stroke, looked very peacefully because she was all about giving. When I digged into her purse, it was all white envelopes. And white envelopes was to denote giving. This woman, towards every moment of her life, was all about giving back to humanity, to society, giving to monks. And our life needs to be more about giving more and taking less. Give smiles, give laughter, give what I've given you all today. Laughter, joy, wisdom, good stuff. Good stuff to think about, good stuff to reflect on so that you can sleep well at night, wake up determined, help your neighbors through it, help your family through the trying times, take more vacations, meditate, enjoy life. Buying through the methods that the Buddha left us. It worked for 2,600 years. It will continue to work for 2,000 more. That's the takeaway, is that stop, reflect, write, breathe.
Ajahn Tri Dao, thank you very much for joining us on your day off.
That was pretty awesome.